I know it sounds silly to say when I finished -1 in the event and the winning score was +4. But if I had won that game, then there was a theoretical chance
You're
because
definitely in the mix at that point.
if FIDE tells me you can't play in a competing world championship cycle, what am I going to do? Fight with them? I mean, of course I can, but I don't really want to do it. But a lot of players also value the world championship cycle perhaps even more than money, which the freestyle events are providing a great deal of money. And Hikaru is still the Fischer random world champion. Maybe in 80 years, FIDE will still not have organized anything, uh, and Hikaru will still be the Fischer random world champion at the age of 115.
Boom! Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the C Squared podcast. Fabi, we haven't chatted in quite a while. You were very busy with the tournament. I've done some recaps. Some of them went well, some of them did not. But we have a lot to talk about because while you were playing tournament, a lot of things were happening outside of the tournament. But let's start with Tata Steel. Obviously, not an inspiring performance, to say the least. I'm sure you have things to say about that, so why don't we go there first?
Yeah, it's probably my worst tournament in since the Olympiad in 22, so like 2.5 years. I would say pretty clearly my worst tournament since then. Really bad tournament. I did feel bad during it. Like I felt that something's going wrong. I don't know at which moment, but like before my game against Fedor maybe. But I somehow couldn't limit the damage, even though I had many opportunities to limit the damage going to the end. I mean, I lost my last two Wijk games. I could have, of course, nobody would have, none of my opponents would have, rejected if I was like going for a drawish line and tried to force a draw in those games. Um, I mean, it's obviously in the last round against Warmerdam, he was
But
having a pretty tough event too. So yeah, I could have shut it down against him. I could have shut it down against Prague, and we would talk about +1. It would, instead of -1, it would still be a poor tournament, but it wouldn't be like one of the worst. It would just look like a pretty poor tournament. Um,
but I
but
feel
yeah,
like
collapsed.
even going into those last two white games, you still had hopes of winning the tournament. Okay, sure, maybe it wasn't
Not after I didn't beat Hari Krishna.
okay. So that was
I
the
mean, I
moment.
had like kind of given up on hopes, but okay, then I still thought I'll push against Pintala. I'll try. That's why I played a sharp Sicilian. I thought he's also a fighting player. He'll not back down. That was the case. And for like the first part of the game, it was a well played game, even from both sides. And then I secured an advantage in the end game. Then I played the end game poorly. Then he played the end game poorly. And then suddenly I was winning. After a few accurate moves, I was winning, and then I missed at least like one pretty simple to figure out win, and one arguably not so simple, but possible. I mean, Rook G3, I played instead of Rook F3. Rook F3 was a straightforward line that you can calculate. It goes very long. It's a long line. Uh,
I'm actually curious. What did you miss there? Because yes, that was the moment that I was chatting with Grigory during the game as well, and it felt like Rook
okay,
F3 is
so
not necessarily an obvious move because Rook G3 is also very tempting. But
I mean, they're
what
both
did you
obvious in the
miss
sense that you consider both moves, right? They're like the first moves that you consider,
exactly?
maybe the only moves you consider.
Yes.
So Rook F3 was kind of the first move that comes to mind because he can't defend the pawn. He clearly has to sack it with F5. I take everything, I take the pawn. He plays Rook E1. Now, if he manages to trade E and F pawns, unless I, force his king away from my pawn, which I can't really do, then it's a dead draw, and I can't stop the trade of pawns. And I did see that I could like bring my king in, but basically I thought that he hides his king on B1. So I win by playing like King A4. Now his king is on D2, right? His king's on D2, yeah? Yeah,
Yes.
so now like if he trades pawns now, E6 take, I just bring my king in again. A3, B3 doesn't really matter. Um oh wait, is my pawn already on B3?
Your pawn, if I
My pawn's
remember
on
correctly,
b3.
was already on b3.
What?
Is my pawn already on b3?
Your pawn, if I
My pawn's
remember
on
correctly,
b3.
was already on b3.
Yeah, my pawn's already in b3. So king a4, e6, take, king a3, and if king c1, well, I can just start promoting with b2 or whatever. And if I get my king in front of the pawn, in front of the b pawn, then this is the standard win, right? So after king a4, he has to wait. He plays, for example, king c1, king a3, king b1, and now he can no longer play e6 because there's a back rank mate. But what can I do? Normally, you can't force the king away from the b1 square. This is kind of the safest possible square. Like if you give it a check, it goes to a1. Check on a2, it goes to b1. So what I do is I put my rook on the third rank anywhere. He's passive. He can't do anything. He can shuffle his king, whatever. King a1, I put my rook on the third rank. He plays king a1, I play b2. He plays king b1, I play king b3. He's still waiting. Now he waits with his rook somewhere. Now
Wait,
I can't
after king b3, can he go e6?
I think my rook has to be in the right place. So I think I play rook c3 first instead of king b3.
You put the rook on c3.
Yeah, because otherwise there's a stalemate, e6, rook e3. That's correct.
That's what I was
So I
thinking.
put my rook on c3. Now he waits because e6, fe6, rook e3. It's not a stalemate with the king on a3, so rook takes e3. So he waits, let's say rook h1. I play king b3 now. I'm now threatening rook to c1, which would be a winning king and pawn game. Because take everything, king c3, king d4, king takes e5, and I'm in front of my f-pawn. So he needs to now try a sort of stalemate trick. So he plays e6, f takes e6, rook to h3. And this is very simple. Black can't take the rook, but black can play e5. And let's say if the rook goes to g3, you play king c4. So you give up the b pawn, and then white's king is cut off with the rook on the c file. So this is winning. If white plays rook e3, then now you play e4. So white can't take the pawn. This is a mutual zugzwang. If it's black's move, then you lose your e pawn or you stalemate.
Wow.
So
that's the only way?
Is
this the only way?
Yeah, this is the only way. Otherwise, the rook is forced to go away. And again, king c4, not e4. I mean, e4, rook h3, king c4. Now the rook moves, let's say, it doesn't actually matter where. But then we just play king to d3, king b2, move the rook anywhere on the c file, king is cut off. This is another standard, very standard win.
Yeah.
So I basically didn't kind of consider that I can just play rook c3, rook c1. I think the reason why I didn't dig deeper in that direction was because for whatever reason, it felt to me that that position was a draw. And I just didn't consider it more. So then I also thought that rook g3 was very promising, which is why I went for rook g3, g5, and this whole line. When I went for rook g3, I had missed rook to f1. So basically what I thought was that I would slowly pick up all his pawns, and he would be kind of passive to stop it because his king has to take a lot of time to get to b1. So then when I played it, suddenly he was thinking, and I suddenly realized that after rook f1, I don't see a clear win. I mean, it looks dangerous for him. Maybe it's winning, but I wasn't sure anymore. And then suddenly he shocked me with rook to h1. And now my second mistake, I think I played this very quickly. It was a careless moment. Part of the reason why I got careless was because when he played rook h1, also from his body language, I just thought that he was like...
He was giving up, yeah?
He had lost hope or something. And I was also relieved that he didn't play rook f1. And then what I had missed, which is very simple, but the reason why I missed is because I didn't bother to take time. You can check my time usage. It was very bad.
Yeah.
Was that I thought that once I play rook to g1, that he just has to trade into a king and pawn in game, which is losing. Of course, he just gives checks, and then he has king c3. Like, I didn't consider this concept at all. But of course, then when I played it, I was like, oh, he can give checks, and his king goes to c3, and now it's the same version as rook f1, but actually worse version for black. Like the same sort of thing, that basically I can't get all his pawns in time. I can get one of them, I can get two of them, but I can't get the last one. And he draws, but it's very close, but he does draw on all the lines. Now, if I had played rook f3, this is kind of a simple moment, but I just didn't stop and think. So yeah, after this, I'd given up hope of the tournament. Like if I had won that game, I know it sounds silly to say when I finished -1 in the event and the winning score was +4. But if I had won that game, then there was a theoretical chance
You're
because
definitely in the mix at that point. I mean, you would be on what, +2?
no, I mean Gukesh was still +5, but okay, it didn't go well for him in the last game and also for Noterbeck in the previous game. I mean, Arjun beat both of them. So just the way things turned out, yeah, if everything had gone ideally for me,
Yeah,
instead of badly, but you
yeah.
can't look at it this way.
Of course not. Yeah.
But of course, after I drew that game, I no longer was thinking about it. I was also feeling very bad in general, like emotionally bad. I don't even know why. I just was like getting extremely angry for no reason, just like irrationally angry. And then I really felt that I should just make a draw against Prague. I, but I don't know. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Like before the game, I was just thinking, okay, you're obviously in terrible shape. Like it's very clear emotionally and everything. You're just in terrible shape. You should just shut the game down against Prague. Then maybe consider the last two games. But this game, you shouldn't be playing it. I mean, I said this even out loud, but somehow couldn't bring myself to do it. Still thought I'd play it safe somehow. It ended up becoming a very sharp mess. Neither of us played well, I have to say, but I played like once I got a very good position, there was a moment, even a few moments where I had a very good position, and I could have just offered a trade of queens and played a very, very safe advantage. Not saying I would win, but very safe. Um, can play basically for two results. I I even considered it, and I don't know why I didn't do it. Like my whole thought process broke down. Of course, there was this thought that like a trade of queens is probably good for you because suddenly his a pawn becomes a weakness, and my king would actually become a strength in the endgame, perhaps. And I have two passed pawns. Well, one passed pawn, but okay, maybe the e pawn eventually becomes passed as well. But yeah, I just don't know. Like it totally broke down, and I also felt like kind of like normally I'm more upset after I lose, but just kind of numb after this loss. And next game was also like everything just kind of fell apart. It was I was like in no state to play chess, and I think at some point I just like kind of exhausted my mental resources. So I just had no more nervous energy anymore.
No,
Um,
that's completely understandable. I mean, and to be honest, sure, you have those practical thoughts like this is the way I should be doing things, but it's so difficult, right, as a competitor to go out there and with the white pieces kill the game. I feel maybe Arjun sort of did that after his absolutely horrendous start, and then he was forced to play, and he won some games towards the end. So it felt kind of like a similar situation. But Arjun, started doing that in the middle of the tournament. You could have, let's say, started doing that towards the end, and it's a much more difficult position to be in psychologically, I would say, to
but
get you to
it's
do those
kind of
things
different. It's because Arjun clearly was tilted at the start. Maybe he
from the
was also
beginning. Yeah,
ill. I mean, I think he was ill. So there was like a combination of factors that didn't work out for him, and he clearly tilted at some point, and it was just all going wrong. But once he recovered, I mean, there was no, I didn't see it as like he's obviously he's done with the tournament.
right,
He's ready to go home. There's
right.
nothing that he's playing for anymore. But I didn't see him as not being dangerous. That's why when I was black against him, I really didn't. I just took it as a normal game. Okay, he didn't want to play the game. He wanted to shut it down. I was okay with that because I understood that it's dangerous. You think someone's in bad form, but okay, it's still Arjun. So I wasn't. I mean, obviously, I wasn't expecting to see him win his last two games against leaders, but I actually wasn't too surprised. I even mentioned like, okay, it would be funny, but it's definitely not impossible that he beats either one of them or both of them. And okay, then he beat Noterbeck. I didn't expect him to beat Arjun. Sorry, to beat Gukesh in the last round. Uh, but Noterbeck, I really did think this is a dangerous game because Noterbeck is going to be
He takes chances.
ambitious,
He takes
and
chances. Yeah,
he also does sometimes play not very objectively.
yeah.
Like, he can sometimes bluff a bit. and this is a dangerous opponent to do it against. So, but that he beat Gukesh with the black pieces, that was not expected, of course.
Yeah, I think I
Um,
saw this table at some point. It was showing the results, direct results between the two, and it feels like Gukesh definitely doesn't feel very secure whenever he plays against Arjun. I think even in Rapid and Blitz, Arjun has a pretty dominant score against him. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic between the two, I feel.
yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like also, you can't just take 4 games that Arjun played and then say that he's going to play badly just because he played badly in 4 games. In the future, um, I I see him as a high 2,700, potentially 2,800 player. Just because he has 4 bad games doesn't really change that for me. But it's hard to take it out of your mind that okay, you're playing against a guy who's clearly suffering in the tournament, and when you take these guys like Gukesh or Noterbeck who are very ambitious, maybe they think I need to pounce on this guy, but it doesn't always it's not so easy, right? Um,
Yeah,
so my struggles were totally different than Arjun's. Like he was struggling maybe with some tilt and some illness. I wasn't ill. I just like kind of shut down in terms of I don't know. My thought process was shutting down. Like you
it's kind
know,
of it's kind of a tilt, right?
it wasn't tilt because I wasn't like sometimes when you're tilted, you're trying to self-destruct, right? You get so angry that you try to
Yes,
self-destruct
yes.
just for a brief period, and it's usually brief. This is more like I don't think that I just got over it at the end and then maybe it would have turned. I think it was getting worse and worse. I think the tournament ended, at a good moment for me before it got even worse. Like I don't think I would have stabilized.
Got it, got it.
While with tilt, you can stabilize like Arjun did. You get over it and then you realize it's not that bad necessarily, right? Okay, you had a bad tournament, it's not that bad. You can still win some games. But when you're completely mentally exhausted to the point that you can't, like one of the important things in chess is you know when to stop to think and you know when not to think, or you know when to move fast and put pressure on your opponent. I was doing it all backwards. If you look at my game against Prague, I kind of went too quickly at the critical moments. I paused too much at different moments. Um, and there's no I can't explain to you why I didn't play Queen F2 at some moment and just offer him the trade of queens. Like it gives him a difficult decision. Instead, I just move my pieces around aimlessly. Obviously, it's not a good thing. Like, am I hoping that he just blunders? It was kind of like I was setting even one move threats and sometimes not even that, with no like plan in mind. Just at least, if you tell yourself, I'll trade queens or I'll offer a trade of queens. Now he has to make the choice. It's a tough choice for him, and this will help me as well figure out the position and maybe he'll provoke a mistake from him. And also, it takes away the third result. Basically, I just chase his queen around with my queen. Like, in an end game, I don't lose, and if he's constantly dealing with the threat of a queen trade, I'm also not going to lose. Um, but also, like later in the game, when I still was objectively okay, although it was going bad for me at that point, but I was still objectively okay. I have a choice of queen moves, and one move just hangs a pawn, and I see that it hangs a pawn, and I also see that rook b1 allows bishop a4. So I see all this, and then my only thought was, you'll just find something after bishop a4. Like he's pinned, but it's totally crazy because, of course, yeah, he is a bit pinned. On the other hand, my king is under the attack of all his pieces, so tactics may also work out for him unless I have something. So you really have to see something very direct if you go for this. And now I did have 2 other moves. One was queen c3, one was queen e2. Basically, I didn't really see queen e2, but I could have thought more and tried to figure it out. But I did see queen c3, and this move is not losing. It's not good. It's a bad move, but still it's not losing. And it does keep my pawn. So, like, can you explain this? There's no way to explain this decision making. And after during the game, I also understand it's crazy decision making. I can go through like other moments, like against Hari Krishna. Why do you play Rook G1 quickly? Like basically it's either a win or a draw. You still have 12 minutes on the clock. Rook f3 attacks a pawn. Rook g1, either he resigns immediately or he has something in mind. Do I really think he's going to resign immediately? Well, I mean, I kind of did, but obviously it's not a very good thought process as well. So my game against Fedor save.
I feel it's just one of those tournaments that simply you're not in good shape. You haven't had one of these in a while. This is just, for me at least, it feels like you were just in a very, very poor shape. And maybe, you haven't felt this type of feelings, but it's one of those tournaments in which during the event, you just feel like everything is going against you and you're just making the wrong decisions at every corner. And it happens. It happens to everybody. I feel like, and sometimes your opponents play the best chess they can against you, or at least this is how you feel in the heat of the battle. But for you, it seems like it was just you were causing the damage, if that makes sense. And that's just the nature of having a bad event, I guess,
Yeah. No, of course, bad events happen.
Yeah. And you've had one of these, right? 2018, was it 2018 when you had this bad Tata Steel and then you qualified for the candidates for the match?
Yeah. Well, Tata Steel has been one of my overall like biggest rating drain tournaments. Yeah, I played, my 2018 was worse. It was -3, not -1. Although probably a stronger field overall. 2013, I think, was also a pretty bad minus. So, and I don't have minus scores super often. So there were also other years that I would say were not great. Like probably 2015 was not too great for me. 2016 was pretty good. But yeah,
2020
there
was
were a
very good.
few. No, 2020 was the one time I won. It was one of my best tournaments ever. Like maybe by performance, my second best ever. I scored +7. It was like historically one of the best Tata Steel performances. Just everything went my way. But that's the only time that I could say I had I had two pretty good ones besides that, 2012, 2018. But only one time I really had a great tournament, and I've had a lot of bad ones. So I think part of it is also that, if you're not doing well there, it kind of exacerbates it. It's a very long one. The time control is long, the amount of games is long. So a lot of times you have a bad tournament, it ends after 9 rounds, and then you don't even like feel all the effects of your poor play. Like if this tournament hadn't ended after 9 rounds, we missed the last 4 rounds. That's the kind of where it all, like the game against Hari Krishna, against Mendonça, against Prague, and against Max Warmadam. So it doesn't look so terrible anymore, right? It's not great, but the tournament
It's
is
a +1. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like your
Lose a couple of rating
run-of-the-mill,
points or something.
nothing great happened, right?
Yeah.
So definitely the length can make things worse.
Yeah, no, tough one, but obviously life goes on, and you're already at your next tournament, Freestyle Chess, starting in a couple of days in Weissenhaus, Germany, and very much related to that. A lot of things have happened. I don't know how much you can talk about, because all the top chess players are kind of caught in the crossfires of this big dispute between Freestyle Chess, Magnus, and Jan Büttner, and Fide. And it's getting pretty dirty, I have to say. It all started, I would say, kind of being in the public eye, and we've talked about it during the Rapid and Blitz in New York. Things were getting a little bit hostile. But right now, things have escalated. Let's see where we stand. So I think we're at this point, the dispute became quite obvious for what it was, and it was for the World Championship name and title that FIDE, understandably so, does not want to give, at least not for free. And Freestyle Chess says, look, FIDE, you're not really doing anything for Chess 960, Freestyle Chess, however you want to call it, Fisher Random. You're not doing anything. You haven't had the World Championship organized since 2022. So we feel like it's in the best interest of chess to take over it and at least have the world championship title. Like there's been some negotiations, numbers were thrown around, 100k, 50k, 500k. Finally, I think it was settled for 300k, and then the negotiations broke down. Not only that, but private messages started being leaked, which is a little bit, strange to say the least. But yeah, what's your take from somebody that had a contract on his desk that perhaps there was some pressure in that regard as well? What's your take on the whole thing?
Yeah, I found the whole thing, or I find it, since I guess it's not like it's not over, let's say, right? It's kind of
It's
temporarily
delayed.
resolved.
It's delayed.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's temporarily resolved in the sense that, um, like FIDE stated one issue. This started in after the match against Magnus that I had, this kind of exhibition match I played in November in Singapore, which I heard immediately. I also mentioned this before, right? I heard immediately that, you know, you can't play competing or any sort of different than FIDE World Championship cycle. It's in your contract. You've signed it before. Yeah, I looked through contract, but it's all very long, and to be honest, I don't really want to like go to the legal side of things, right? It's just a waste of my energy. If FIDE tells me you can't play in a competing world championship cycle, what am I going to do? Fight with them? I mean, of course I can, but I don't really want to do it. And anyway, I was told this, and I basically told both of them, like, you guys figure it out. I don't want to get in the middle of things. I don't represent freestyle. I don't represent FIDE. I'm a player. I'm happy to play in your events. In general, my priorities are the classical world championship, and I think most players align with that. I can't really speak for other people so much, but my understanding is that most of the top players align with that their dream is to become the world champion, or perhaps they are the world champion in Gukesh's case. So his his interests also align financially with that. Um, and we're in some ways we're getting in the middle of it because we're useful for both sides
Right.
as players, kind of as tools to be used either as a negotiating tool or maybe a PR tool. Because both sides need the players, right? The players make the events. The organizers organize the events, but if you have no players, you can call it whatever you want. It's not going to be publicly received as anything.
I mean, to be
Whether you
honest, at
call
this
it,
point, whoever has the majority of players from the top 10, top 20 on their side wins the argument, pretty much.
it's not clear who has that.
Exactly. Yeah.
There was some sort of push in general internally to unite players on one side or the other. Both sides wanted to do this very naturally. They want to get the players on their side. And I think in general, people have a lot of different opinions among the players. Like, if we're talking about Magnus, clearly his interests generally lie with freestyle because uh, he's part of the organization in some way. I mean, it's in some ways part of his initiative, right?
He's a
As
stakeholder
well
in the
as
company. Yeah.
as well
So,
as Jan Buettner. Yeah, it's kind of their initiative. And Hikaru in general seems to have aligned in that direction as well. And I understand why. I mean, we've all also gotten frustrated many times dealing with FIDE in the past. But a lot of players also value the World Championship cycle perhaps even more than money, which the freestyle events are providing a great deal of money and is financially very interesting. The World Championship, which is organized by FIDE, has a great legacy and a great history, which is valuable in its own way. And at least for me personally, I can assume also at least some, perhaps many other players feel the same way that, you know, it's a nice dream and a goal to become world championship and to add your name to the list of names like Kasparov, Fischer, Capablanca, Lasker, Steinitz, and so on. not to speak of course of the modern champions as well. So it's just different priorities, and like of course I want to play both. I want to play the really high money freestyle events, which are fun and don't require super intense preparation. It's not fun to play the candidates. I don't enjoy the stress that goes on for a month straight and also includes months of preparation beforehand. I could call it rewarding or uh, I want to do it, but definitely fun is not a word I'd use. While an event like this is fun, it's not too much pressure. The money is nice. It rewards creativity a lot. You can kind of enjoy yourself without worrying too much about the consequences of every small decision. So it's just very different, and I would like to play both. But I was being told that, maybe I can play both or maybe I can't.
Yeah.
And legally, I have no idea. I really don't know. I don't know if FIDE has a position. I understand that their desire is very logical, and perhaps it's even good. But I don't know if they legally have a position where they can pretty much trademark Chess World Championship. And I do think in one place they really do fail, at least from a moral point of view, which is that uh, if your position is that, we have to maintain the integrity of the World Championship, which is a very fair position, and we can't allow all sorts of different entities, perhaps with their own financial interests, to take it in directions that we can't control. I'm not saying that that's the case, but if that's their position, they still need to organize a Fischer Random or Freestyle, whatever, Chess 960, whatever you want to call it, World Championship. You still have to do that. You can't just eliminate the whole thing and then say we have a right to this thing, which we're also not doing ourselves. The last time they did it was 2022. Hikaru won. That's 2.5 years ago. There has been no, at least plan, from what I've seen, to have another Fischer Random World Championship. So to me, okay, Hikaru is still the Fischer Random World Champion. Maybe in 80 years, FIDE will still not have organized anything, uh, and Hikaru will still be the Fischer Random World Champion at the age of 115. I mean, like you have to organize it or it loses its value because it doesn't, you know, part of the value of the World Championship is that it's a recurring thing which tests the best player at that moment continuously, right? At that format. They do the World Rapid Championship, they do the World Blitz Championship. They don't do the Fischer Random World Championship. So you'd think that it's a match made in heaven. Freestyle wants to organize a world championship. FIDE needs to organize a world championship. It seems logically that there should be a way to align their interests, but for some reason they couldn't.
I
Um,
feel it became a matter of principle, right? Kind of a tug of war, especially financially, I guess. Obviously, whoever is sponsoring or whoever is backing freestyle chess has deep pockets, and they probably have a very vested interest in it being named the World Championship. Now, FIDE wants money for that. They're trying to get some money out of it. They're trying to, please their financial um, needs as well. And for me, it felt like they're just simply going to find a common denominator, find an amount that they both feel comfortable with, and the negotiation would be over. But again, it just felt like slowly, since Magnus took the stand during the Blitz, it felt that the relationship soured somehow. And then obviously you were having this whole Emil Dvorkovich bad cop, good cop situation, and it felt like somebody stepped on somebody's feet. You know what I mean? And
it was clearly sour. I mean,
it
from the
became some
beginning,
an
very, very
ego
clear.
ego situation almost.
But I still don't really understand it. I mean, I actually I've talked to both parties, and they've told me what, the negotiations are, what the offers are, what the problems are, and I just don't get it. I really didn't get it. I didn't end up understanding where the breaking point was, because at some point, what they told me was that everything that we want is being offered by the other party, and everything that they want is being offered by us. and still it, it just doesn't make sense to me. So of course my assumption is that, I heard perhaps um, a slightly cleaned up version of the events from one side or the other. But I really don't know. And I don't think that either side like has is acting in bad faith necessarily. I don't think that. And I also think that in their own respective roles, they do often do a good job. I think like the freestyle events um, are really well organized and they have a good vision, and I've enjoyed playing them.
They're fun. They're fun to watch
And they're
also.
fun. They're very entertaining. I think the public likes them. They bring the best players together. The money is very good. There's a lot of praise that I could put on these tournaments. And FIDE does organize consistently a world championship cycle that I find valuable and that most of the people who enjoy chess find valuable, I believe. The Classical World
Absolutely.
Championship is the most
Absolutely.
watched event and the most important event. I think pretty much everyone in the chess world agrees on that. And all the players who are playing this event, they want, well, besides Magnus, because he opted out, want to become the world champion in classical chess. So besides Magnus, who has been world champion and chose to not defend his title after many years, everyone else wants to be world champion. So we all have interest in FIDE, and we all have interest in playing the freestyle tournaments. That's like I think widely the players' position, but of course there's going to be some nuances because players are going to have to potentially weigh, uh, you know, the. I'm in a slightly unique situation because I qualified for the candidates, so I'm kind of like have more interest in being in the FIDE cycle because my chances are a bit greater than other players currently because they still have to qualify, right?
Yeah.
I have a bit more equity
Yeah.
in terms of that.
You do. You do. Yeah.
But um, but nobody wants to give up playing the FIDE tournaments, right? For mostly from the players.
Right. And I feel
Even
it's,
Hikaru, I think.
well, and that's kind of where, you're starting to see a gray area, right? People that are aging out, let's say, of these hopes and dreams, right? Because players are very practical and they understand that at some point you reach a certain age, you reach a certain level of maturity and level of understanding that you understand your not necessarily that your dreams might not be attainable, but maybe you're just not even interested in them to the same degree that the players such as Prague or
Yeah,
Gukesh
that will
or
change
the
for sure.
20-year-olds have, right? So I'm seeing this as a battle of generations as well, if that makes any sense, right? On which side
But
one
I do
generation
think
is going
that
to be more.
it's still individual. I still think it's
It is
individual.
very
Like
individual,
there's the
yes.
age factor. I'm older than Noterbeck. He hasn't played the candidates. I've played it many times, so I've been through the gauntlet, and he wants to go through the gauntlet.
Like Noderbeck, I don't
Um,
see him going for freestyle chess. Like if he's forced to do something, I see him as a clear, I'm on Fide's side.
I actually think most players would choose to play the FIDE events. I really do. And I and of course there's going to be an age factor perhaps, and some sort of monetary consideration that older players may weigh a bit more naturally.
Like Levon, for example, if he's forced, I think he's going to go with freestyle. I'll just give you a couple of names, like one from the other side.
I really don't know. I hope that no player is forced to choose. I don't know about Levon's preference. I could have like a pretty good idea of what Hikaru has said publicly, like his preferences
Hikaru is
is
probably going to go with freestyle, right?
well, he's kind of hinted publicly at a more um like perhaps adversarial towards again, I don't want to put words into anyone's mouth. I don't know their choices as
Right.
well. Like maybe Hikaru would choose to play FIDE events. The thing is, my hope in general is that there doesn't have to be a choice. And at least within the past few days, there was like for me, always the simplest solution was just don't call it the World Championship. But I can't tell a private organizer not to call his tournament that he
Investors are
wants
not
to.
going to be happy about that. Like investors
Well,
want something, they put a lot of money. I think they have like $12 million backing, which is a lot of money. I think they won the world championship
maybe,
title.
yeah. But it's the best solution in terms of peace, right? It brings the peace immediately because that's the one thing that FIDE said you can't do. And if you, aside from that, it's basically any other tournament like the Grand Chess Tour, the Global Chess League, this, that, whatever other tournament that FIDE has absolutely no qualms over. Uh, it becomes part of those events that coexist peacefully with FIDE, and FIDE basically just says we'll organize our dates around your dates and we'll find solution in terms of scheduling. Just don't call it the World Championship and we're good. That's basically it. So they took out all the. I do want to clarify one thing. The freestyle it wasn't called like the Weissenhaus World Championship. It was called the Grand Slam, Freestyle Grand Slam. And at the end, they were going to, based on the Grand Slam results, they were going to announce a world champion. But the language was only in like one place, basically. It was only in the regulations somewhere. I didn't even know about it until like FIDE talked to me and showed me that this language was in this particular place. Once they took it out of that place, the whole problem went away, at least until freestyle decides that they want to call it a world championship again, which may happen. And then the only solution, which could bring all the players together, is if FIDE is part of that, is sanctions in some way. Aside from that, you would like the issue is, and I told both sides this, that like you'll see a split. Like you can postpone it as much as you want, but if you call it a world championship at any point and FIDE doesn't sanction it, the players will either, I don't know if they'll be forced to choose, maybe they can go with, but players are not going to want to get their lawyers on it. And you will see a split of players. Some players will choose this, some players will choose that, which is not ideal for anyone. So basically, at some point, they have to find a solution, either not call it a world championship or FIDE sanctions it as a world championship. Or they go through this whole painful litigation process. And I don't know what the outcome of that is, but personally, I don't want to get involved in that. I don't want my time to be spent dealing with lawyers, dealing with FIDE representatives, and not knowing which tournament will be my next one. That's at least my position.
No, that makes perfect sense, and I think it's a very fair position, and it's one that, you know, as somebody that not necessarily has a stake, a financial stake in any of the companies, would take. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and I feel this one hopefully is going to be resolved in after some negotiations. Both parties will come back to the table and agree to what they seem to have agreed upon, and I think it was even announced by this Tarjay guy who said that it seems like they have a deal and it's going to be announced on Monday, and then
But
everything
it
broke
was always
down.
in the negotiation phase.
Right.
It was never a solid deal. No, there was nothing signed ever. And I don't know why it fell apart,
Yeah.
but it was only something like we're close. I kept hearing we're close to something.
But at least
But
on paper, what he reported, I think it was him, you know, $300,000, FIDE representatives at all tournaments, or at least at the finals, or whenever a world championship, a world champion is announced. Like everything seemed to be very, very in place, in tune to whatever
yeah, I
everybody
think so.
wanted, and then
I
it
think it was
just broke
fair.
down. And then it just broke down.
I think it was a pretty fair offer, and I don't know why
Yeah,
FIDE
it
didn't
felt
go
like a
for
fair
it.
offer. Yeah, yeah.
It felt like a nice solution to the issue. I don't know why. I do think that like one thing I definitely disagree with on FIDE, because I'm not going to comment on the negotiation stuff because I don't know all the stuff that went between them. But they did send this letter out by email to everyone rated over 27-25. That's all the players rated over 27-25.
Well, the players that
Uh,
were in this freestyle championship club or
yeah,
freestyle club.
and the letter basically was, I mean, it was also public, right? It was that, FIDE had discussions with Freestyle and et cetera, et cetera. We couldn't come to agreement. We failed to reach an agreement. And then what does this mean for you? You already signed contracts, but FIDE is offering a one-time exception for 2025. basically, even if it's called a world championship, you can play it and you won't get penalized, but only for 2025.
Right.
And you have to sign your understanding that it's only for this year and that for next year, you are opting out of any other thing which is called a world championship. And then it came with a legal document, I mean, there's a waiver basically, that it was expected that it would be signed before, was it February 3rd? And, the player is informed and acknowledged, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this also became public, right?
It did. Yeah.
And I don't mind that they're, asking for this, but that to do it during a tournament, during Wijk, which I was playing, Noterbeck, Gukesh, Prague, Fedosev was qualified. A lot of players are being asked to sign a document within the next, like, basically 10 days during a tournament.
In the middle of the tournament. Yeah, that's not feasible.
For a tournament which I accepted my invitation for in July. Like when I accepted to play Weissenhaus, it was in July and it wasn't called a world championship or anything. So this is an absolutely unfair bit of pressure to put on players. I think that was a really wrong step. Like they could have handled it in different ways. I already said they should handle it with the organizer. You can't just start pressuring players with like very short notice documents. I'm not even when they send this letter, it's not like they're telling me, you're invited to the candidates in 2026 and therefore, we need to know. No, it's just that you have to sign this letter. This has nothing to do with any tournament that you're playing in the future of ours. This is just that you don't play another tournament that you already agreed to a half a year ago because we have a private conflict with the organizer that has nothing to do with you. And now we want a short notice contract signed. That I think is not a way to go about it.
Yeah, no. On a positive note, I do think that both parties somehow have a positive agreement in mind for the future. I feel like Freestyle saying that, okay, we're not going to name it when they could have named it a world championship, and some players would have signed, some players wouldn't, and then they would at least kind of understand where everybody lies. But not forcing the players, obviously. This allows them 1 year to decide on what they want to do, whether they want to take it to litigation, take it to court, and try to get the name from FIDE, or reach a conclusion and reach a negotiated sum and agreement with FIDE. And then FIDE immediately said that, okay, since it's not going to be called the World Championship, you guys don't have to sign anything, at least not for the moment. So
yeah, that's the current position.
I feel like everybody kind of, like you guys, especially as players, got what you wanted, and that's good because the players are the most important in the end. And I guess we will see what's going to happen in a year's time, but I feel like both parties, at least right now, the last couple of steps, the last couple of moves that I've seen from both of them, they seem to hint at a positive outcome later on in the future and more negotiation to happen. So
I really think like what they should be, somehow they should find an agreement to have it as a sort of partnership, not a full partnership, but that FIDE says, this is the official world championship and we sanction it, and Freestyle makes some commitments and FIDE makes some commitments and everyone's happy, because it really is something that FIDE has failed to do. They haven't organized a world championship since 2022. The one before that was 2019. They've hosted like 2 official Fischer Random World Championships, and then if you want to have a claim over the title, then you have to kind of put effort into organizing it. It's also a form of chess which people value in terms of finding out who's the best player. It's a bit different from classical chess. Like we don't take it maybe as seriously, but and we don't devote all our time to trying to be the best, right? In the same way that we do with work towards classical chess. But still, it's a very valid and interesting form of chess, and the best classical chess players also do happen to be the best Fischer random chess players. And also, I like take great exception to how they organized the event in 2022. in terms of their selection of players. It was an 8-player event, and 4 players were wildcards.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You can't have half a tournament being a wild card.
Yeah, that was a bit crazy.
And the rest was online qualifiers, where the first event I played was on chess.com. There were no measures. I played a guy who was 2000 chess.com rating, and that guy beat me and Hikaru in the same event. And we both dropped out of the event because we were losing so many games. And then I just chose not to play any more qualifying events because I was like, okay, if they're not taking it seriously, then I'm not going to play. Why should I waste my time?
Online qualifying events for a world championship is absolutely nuts. I mean,
and Hikaru played the Elite Chess event.
Yeah, he won
and qualified through there.
Yeah.
Where maybe they had some cameras to ensure that nobody's cheating. But when I played, it was just a complete mess. I'm playing against players who are like 1500s, and they're crushing me and Hikaru. And the rest of the tournament was just wild cards. I mean, the host nation had a wild card for a world championship. You can't have that. You can't have the host nation. It was Iceland, right? They played Reykjavik, which makes sense. It's Fischer random. The whole thing, even though Hikaru is a worthy Fischer random world champion, the whole process I think was just ridiculous. I mean, the event made no sense. So they have to put effort into organizing it in the future, or collaborating with Freestyle and making like a really proper world championship. Those are the best outcomes in my opinion.
Yeah. No. I do think that the best outcome, at least from my perspective and from what I've seen in the past year since Freestyle kind of emerged, is to give it to them. Find a solution, give it to them. Obviously, they're very serious about it. They have the backing and they have the vision. And I do think that with those things, with the star power that Magnus has, obviously things are going to move in the right direction. So try to find a solution, put more meat on the table for the players, put more meat on the table for the fans, for the spectators, for everybody involved in chess. So yeah, I think this would be the right solution. Just you need to find a negotiated outcome. We'll see how it happens. I think this saga is not over yet. But Fabi, you're starting in a couple of days. You're feeling emotionally stable, psychologically stable after Tata Steel. You're looking forward to the event. What's the mental state you're in right now?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing. It'll be a fun change. I feel pretty decent about it. But it'll be tough. It's a tough event. Everyone's here. Well, not everyone, but everyone's here. It's a really strong event, and it's a familiar place to me. I've been here before. Last year in February, we played the same place, right? Same location. What's that?
It's a beautiful place, right? I've never been, but I've heard very good things about it.
It's a resort in the very, very north point of Germany. Closest major city is Hamburg. I guess depending on your definition of major city, but it's very, very north of Germany, and Weissenhaus tournament. It'll be fun. I do have to head out though.
Okay. All right. That sounds like a plan. No, you did tell me that you have a dinner. So go out there, enjoy yourself, and I'm sure we'll catch up throughout the event. And have fun and say hi to everybody.
Will do.
All right. Cheers, Fabi. Have a good one. Bye, guys.
Bye.